studios in New York City. This is Charlie Rose.
Filmmaker Robert De Niro is here. For years, the Academy Award-winning actor has wanted to tell a story about the origins of the CIA during the Cold War. The Good Shepherd is his answer. Here is the trailer for the film. Also joining me, two of the film stars, Academy Award winners Matt Damon and Angelina Jolie. I am pleased to have them here to talk about this rather extraordinary film. Congratulations.
Thank you.
After 8 years?
Yes, about 8 years.
Tell me what it was about the story that you wanted to tell that sort of created this great interest for you.
Well, I had always been interested in this world. It's a fascinating, great world. You know, you can go on and on with stories about it, obviously. So I was working on something myself earlier, but then I had read The Good Shepherd, and I asked Eric, I met him, and I asked him if he'd work on this thing that I was working on, which was about a later period. And so he wasn't inclined to do that, but we agreed that I could, if I directed The Good Shepherd, if I could get to the point, which he finally did, then he would write the next installment, if we would ever be so lucky to do that, which you never know, hopefully we might be able to, but so that was it. And I loved his script. I mean, everybody loves it. That reads it, and it was one of those 10 best unproduced scripts that I learned later was like in film magazines and stuff like that. And I guess, I don't know if you read it before. You might have, and I know you had read it before.
It had come across your desk before.
I read it as a writing sample. I didn't even read it it was because it was one of those great unproduced things, and I try and keep up with those, and I just read it. At the time, I think you were supposed to be in it. It was years and years ago. Yeah. So yeah, and I loved it.
And so why wasn't it made into a movie before?
I think it was too hard, and just people were afraid of what it might cost. I mean, there were some scenes we had to take out. I'm sad to say, like the Iran sequence and Mossadegh and all that stuff. We and some other things that I had to give up in order to get other things, which is something that happens in movies. You sort of negotiate for what you can hold on to.
It couldn't be made until after 9/11. I mean, 9/11 made it more interesting to make, or?
Well, it was, once 9/11 happened, I figured it'll never, everything stopped. But I was trying to make it before that, and then I guess now things are more relative, obviously, with it's coming out now. Someone
said to me that you couldn't have, or read this, couldn't have made this, say, 10 years ago, you were too young, that what you needed in this is, because the character is so torn by the nature of his life, as well as the impact on his family. You had to have a certain age on you before you could do it.
Well, yeah, I mean, the character ages from 19 to 41 or 2, right. So I had actually a lot shorter distance to travel to get to the end and back to the beginning. So yeah, it was a good age for me to do it. Probably, it would have been harder if I was a little older or a little younger, I think.
This film has an interesting relationship to your friend Marty's movie, The Departed. Because he's in it.
Yes.
Because Marty wanted you in it.
Yes, I'm sorry I couldn't be in it. I wanted to be in it.
You had nothing to do with either of them, except this one.
Well, don't.
But it is also, Leo was in that one.
Yes.
You considered him for this part.
Yes.
Yeah,
no, Leo was, we were going to do it, but then it was still complicated with scheduling this and that I went to Matt. I said, Leo, I got to move on, and I went to Matt. And he came, and thank God he did. Thank you.
Because it turned out he was right.
Well, everybody would do it in their own way. It would be, but Matt, did it, and every way supportive and so on. So it's just that's it.
It's almost like everything came together. I mean, the right timing, the right everything. I mean, the great Michael Gabon.
He's wonderful.
Yeah. When you travel around, as you do as an ambassador for the United Nations and all the places you go, is there much talk about the CIA when they talk about America? Do you hear much of that kind of sense of the CIA as the evil extension of America?
Not in the circles I'm in, no. But there is always the question about America, and I'm sure that is part of what they're talking about. The questions about, the recent war, the intelligence, the president. So of course it's an element that is maybe not blatantly discussed, but is certainly present.
Tell me about the character you play here, who's his wife.
She is. Well, first of all, just to get involved, I didn't read the script years ago. I read it
And it was sent to you.
a few months before.
Yeah.
And it wasn't originally sent for me to do. It was sent to me as something that was being done, and then I fought for it. I wanted to do it, and we met many times. I loved the project, and I wanted to work with Mr. Niro. And but the character to me was, as a woman, it was somebody who in the beginning had so much fire and spirit, and by the end was quite dead inside. And that journey was fascinating to me as an actor, and to understand what it is to be the wife of somebody who works for the government, especially the CIA, and made me think of all wives of policemen, wives of anybody in the government. Yeah. What that kind of, but especially certainly the agency.
Why is it especially the agency for what it does to the sort of the nature of intimate relationships?
Well, I think any good relationship is based on trust.
Yeah.
so if you have a marriage,
and every good CIA will learn that there is nobody to trust.
There's nobody to trust it, and shares nothing.
Yeah.
So it's not, how can it even be a marriage, really? And I've come to believe, because I've met women of the CIA recently. I met a woman, and we were talking, and I think the only way it works is if you are both equally patriotic and believe so much in what you're doing and your government somehow that your silent marriage is part of your own contribution.
But in this case, she couldn't.
She couldn't, no, and I couldn't.
And you couldn't.
And I couldn't. No.
Because of the nature of your own life force.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know how well I would have done living in the 40s or 50s either. I'm just not that type of woman. But
it wasn't that bad. I was there.
No, but
you weren't a woman.
But a fascinating world. But I felt like the housewife who really knew nothing of what was going on. So I was quite closed off.
Tell me about him. I mean, in the whole sense of this character in the Good Shepherd, but getting inside and how he lives. And you have said that what was important for you was for him to appreciate the restraint that he operated with.
Yeah.
Meaning what? Meaning.
Well, I just Matt is different than the character, very different, and and for the youthful part, that we would allow that to be more there. But then as he got older and more sort of within himself, and we took this approach, which was for him to get more closed, and so we're always watching, making sure that there wasn't any extraneous kinds of movements or things that would to make him more youthful. We had to make him. That was really important, to say the least.
It's also things that I could do subconsciously, not even know it, and it would really help to have somebody who was sitting right next to me the whole time, saying, and keeping an eye on all of that, so that it was all kind of a piece. It seemed like the same guy. I'm just a little bouncier than just naturally, and I realized how much so.
He's really still right now.
That's what?
He's really still right now.
Yeah, I know, that's not the man we know. But getting this character right, what was it about him that in the end we ought to know that makes him compelling and interesting?
You'd probably have to watch it and draw your own conclusions. But in terms of preparing it, it was just I came late into the whole process, and Bob's very famous for his attention to detail, and so I made the mistake of calling his office and saying, "Do you guys have any research materials?" Mountain stuff came to my
Next
house.
day there was a box outside your door,
a giant box, and so I read a lot. One of the things that we talked about early on that I was concerned about was scheduling wise, as he said, he had to end up talking to Marty to front load me in The Departed, because I ended up wrapping The Departed on a Friday and starting Good Shepherd on the following Monday, and so I didn't have any time in between. So I had to get ready for both movies before The Departed started. Mm-hmm. So I was kind of preparing two of these things at the same time. But he was very adamant that because he had been on the movie for so long and been thinking about the character, and basically he'd prepared the role so that I could move into it and not worry about it, and to have him as a safety net was really about as much as an actor could ask for, because I knew I was going to be okay, even if I didn't. I mean, with all the reading that we did, and then we met with family members of people who were actually family members of original. Some of the people who were there at the beginning of CIA, and some of the people that these biographies were about, and they were nice enough to give us some reminiscences of their lives and what their home life was like, because obviously that was this whole aspect of the movie. And then we had a technical advisor named Milt Bearden, who was fantastic.
Been on this show a number of times.
Yeah, and he's a brilliant. Yeah, he really is, and he was a great resource for us. And then at the end, I had Bob as my backstop, and he didn't let anything. He knew every single detail of the performance that he wanted and was important, and so he was very good about communicating what he needed and articulating it in a way that I could understand it, and guiding me to do it.
Are you conscious at all times, obviously, because of what he has done as a actor, that the man talking to me understands what I do as well as anybody in the world could understand what I do? Yeah,
that was a big part of being comfortable, of being comfortable with something that I felt was a really big, an incredible role that was going to be very minimalistic, because the guy's not going to broadcast his feelings, and I had just complete trust. I mean, he definitely knows what we're going through.
There's something to be said for a director that has the kind of experience you have in understanding actors.
Well, I think actors in general that I've seen working with other actors get pretty good performances out of actors. Clint Eastwood was just here, some terrific. I don't think I've ever seen where bad performances given by actors who have been directed by someone who's an actor.
And what is it about that? I mean, it simply.
I think there's just, like any profession, they just know. There's an you don't need to say certain things that are obvious, and when you make a suggestion that they trust that it's something that they know it's a good one.
Yeah, you're at the time in which you've had a chance to do. You work with lots of interesting directors, and also you have a chance to choose what you want to do. So you choose a director like this would make a difference, as you said, for you, because you want to learn, you want to know what he's like, you want to.
Well, I mean, I think there are many things about this project that were just like, a heaven sent. I mean, to where I love Eric Roth as a writer.
Oh, yeah.
I love the subject matter of this. I was fascinated by it. I hadn't read something that was such a smart, I had to read it 4 times before I really understood the script. And to work with Bob is just a dream for any actor, just because there's so much, because his passion and his body of work is taught us all. We've all studied of everything he's done, and so it was, and Matt, who hardly spoke to me through the whole film, but it was really great to work with.
Why did you hardly speak to her?
We had an odd marriage, It was,
No, in the film.
Oh, the film.
We always joke about the fact that I was constantly talking to myself.
I thought he was in character in the film.
No, but so it was everything about it.
Just to understand, the 2 movies that were there that you put together in one is one sort of looking back at the beginning of the CIA and how it was formed coming out of OSS in World War II. Right. And on the other hand, your sense of great curiosity about the CIA's role in the Cuban.
Yes, and it's also used as a device in the story. As I don't want to give it away, but that kind of it's hanging on. It sets up the hopefully the drama, the interest by starting out with it.
Yeah. Here's what's interesting to me too. I mean, I've known a lot of these people from Helms to Colby to having met Angleton. Are they now, because this was some time ago, much more open to talking about who they are and what they did? I mean, Helms is dead, and Colby is dead, and Angleton is dead, and Bissell is dead, but there's still people who knew them, like Bilton, people like that.
No, I think that's true. I think they've opened up and feel that they have to be more accessible. That whole cult of mysteriousness or whatever. It is by nature of what it is. It is what it is. But at the same time, there has to be. They've opened up more, I think, and more, that's good for many reasons.
Well, here's what's interesting too, from the standpoint of one who's looked at it. I mean, both in we know that Philby and those guys came out of Cambridge. There was sort of a whole great university feeding them. Same thing is true. The CIA was formed by very bright young Ivy League guys,
right?
And I assume some women as well, who sort of really formed it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And today it's different. I mean, it's not that way anymore. An old boys club is not.
It's different.
It's different. Yeah, it's different. Yeah. Milt's vintage, actually. I think he came in the mid '60s, and they reach out more than. I mean, it's in this movie. Bob plays the character of basically a Wild Bill Donovan.
Right.
But his name is General Sullivan in the movie, and he lays out what the prescription is for the type of people they'll be looking for, and that's who they were looking for. And it is a really well documented time, and they were a really well documented group of people with biographies written about
Wild Bill Donovan was amazing.
Well, yeah, sure. So that was helpful in preparing because you could really get a sense of the whole world. There was a lot of things written about them and the culture that they came from, and
Did you seek out these guys to talk to them, or you just had Milt there for constant reference?
Yeah, well, Milt was there, and then we met with the families, which is kind of one generation away. But I mean, I don't know that. I mean, this is a very different time, and these are very different people. I mean, Blue Bloods. I mean, I went to Harvard, and it was tough to run across Blue Bloods quite like this. I mean, the world's changed a lot since 1939.
This film, it is said by some, wouldn't have been made unless you could have gotten him to sign on. Is that a fair?
Matt, absolutely, wouldn't have been done, and Angelina.
Well, yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's certainly yes.
But what is the reluctance? I mean, you had a fantastic script, a great director, and obviously with them coming made it happen. But is it just simply waiting for the right talent before these studios are willing to bankroll this kind of thing?
They are nervous about it. As I say, there was one sequence in particular that was took place in Iran that I would love to have done, but that would have been another week of shooting, at least. And so I had to give that up in order to get the other scenes. And Matt gave up most of his salary, and if I didn't have him to come back to every time, it would have been like the pressure is just unbelievable. And he loved the script, loved the character, and told me that, and that's what is needed for these kind of projects. And as Angelina said,
is it all that you wanted it to be?
Yes. I mean, I can't. Somebody asked me, are you happy? I said, when we just finished the last mix, with the sound and music and everything. I said, I'll be as happy as I'll ever be.
Are you ever completely happy?
No, I'm not.
Great. Help me out here. And for you as a movie experience, how was this different from other things?
Oh, the filming. It was just, it honestly reminded me of why I want to be in this business. I've done I think so much now. It has become such a business, and so often now. Maybe one of the reasons this was difficult to make is it's an expensive movie, it's a period movie, and it's a real smart movie. It's a complicated movie. It is not something that is obviously going to make a studio a bunch of money, and so to have an experience where you are in it and everybody who's in it is in it for all the right reasons, just to make the best film they can, and the conversations going on set about foreign policy, about the history, about life, it's just amazing, and the work everybody is doing, and surrounded by such amazing actors and all the best.
This is why you want to be an actor.
Yeah, then you realize this is what we are supposed to be doing. This is what we're supposed to be focusing on. We're supposed to be trying to tell stories that we feel are relevant, as honestly as possible, with as much attention to detail and research and respect for the filmmaking process, and work really, really hard as a team. and that's why it was one of the best, absolutely, experiences I've ever had.
It is one of the best movies I've seen in a long time, Bob.
Right.
It really is. And because I'm interested in the subject matter, so I acknowledge that. But it is because of performance. Billy Crudup is great. I mentioned Gabon is great.
Yeah.
The great Gabon is great. And just so many people. And Eric's script.
Yes.
I mean, the whole thing is crisp, and it gives you a sense of a sort of crucial time in America. When you are going through this, do you know this is a movie that's working? I mean, when you're there in the midst of filming, or do you have to see it to?
The scenes
You feel something
well,
that's-
the things feel good kind of moment to moment, but it's impossible. I mean, we always talked about what Steven Soderbergh says, filmmaking's like doing a giant mosaic from 2 inches away.
Yeah, right.
So it's really hard to get a grasp of the big picture when you're right up against it, and all you can really do is, if you have faith in the script, which we all did. And in my case, I was either going to work with Angie or with Bob or with John Turturro or Michael
Right.
Gambon.
I forgot
or Billy
him. John
Crudup
did a fabulous job.
Yeah, he's fantastic. Or Alec Baldwin, William Hurt. I mean, it's these incredible actors. Everybody was cast perfectly. Tammy Blanchard, who plays the girl that I have I'm courting in college. She was who's deaf. She was fantastic. And so day to day it felt really good, but we'd leave every day and go, yeah, I think that was good, and then we'd go to the next day, but we were 100 and some odd days of that. So at the end, it was that we were guardedly optimistic, but we just tried to maintain our focus because it was a long haul. It was every day was 16, 18 hours.
And a complex film to make, going back and forth and being able to move.
Yeah.
Take a look at this. Here is a clip from the film. Tell me the story you were telling us while we were watching that.
That I did an interview recently, and somebody said, "You guys have great chemistry."
You
I thought,
said.
"Are you kidding me?" Because we were always joking that we have this must be one of the worst possible relationships.
Yeah, so there was no way
Or
to
just
show
odd, 'cause
chemistry.
it's not even interesting enough to be the worst. It's just one of the oddest.
Yeah, just missing every time. Yeah. Zero chemistry.
Did
Which is
Marty
tough
play
to
any
play.
role? Did you, because you're such great friends, phone to ring occasionally? And
No, I called Marty, and actually after the movie, I put it together. I sent it to him, and then I sent him another version, because I want to get his input on one thing that I did that I took out that we in the reshoot, and I was curious what his impression would be. So
And what did he say?
He told me, he said, you got to figure it out. Ask other people. He wasn't, it was more like a teacher saying, and I forgot, Marty was taught film at NYU. So, I mean, actually that was just, because you could go one way, you could go the other. I just was worried about it. So, he couldn't give me an answer on that. He said, I'm not sure myself, ask around,
How many more do you want to make with him?
Well, I always say at least 2.
Yeah.
And in fact, I got Eric Roth together with Marty to come up with something for us. In fact, today they're meeting.
So as we speak, they may be talking at lunch or something, saying...
Trying to,
You got to get in on that one.
Yeah, you want to get in this movie, don't you? You guys want to sign up now? Now, is it an extension of this story?
no, it's not an extension of this story. If it was, it's about our career, and I'm not even sure we're working it out. What Marty wants to do, what Eric is coming up with, and what I put into it, and so they're working on it. And that's
My role.
My role. Come on.
Okay, I'm going to come back to that for a moment, but what is it about the two of you? I mean, there is history, but what else? I mean, you're more Irish than you are Italian in the end.
Well, half a little of it,
right.
other things too. But we just have a very special relationship, creative relationship, and I mean, any actor will tell you that. Matt could tell you that with Marty, he's just open to ideas, open to things, open to trying things, and he's very, very respectful of actors. And that's, and he's not afraid to try things unless it's, and that's what he's supposed to do. As a director, he guides you here and there if it's going off, but he's very smart. So He knows, what to do.
How many times do you want to direct?
I don't know. I only thought if I ever did 5 movies, that would be it for me.
You've done 2.
2. I'd love to do the next installment to this. We'll see, and maybe who knows? But I could only do 5. I'd like to finally, if I ever did, write one and then direct it totally.
The whole
do the whole thing,
experience.
Make a film by, as opposed to, because this one, for me, is I directed it. It's not a film by me. I directed it. Eric wrote it. I had the collaboration of everybody, all the actors, and Bob Richardson, the DP,
Tom
Tarek.
Who was your cinematographer?
Bob Richardson.
Bob
Robert
Richardson,
Richardson,
right.
Tarek Khan was the editor. These guys are all great. Lucky to have them. And
That's
all
the
other
great
people.
thing about what you guys do. It's a collaborative experience, isn't it?
Yeah. No other way.
I mean, it really is a whole coming together. Yeah. There's interesting themes in this too. Speak to this about father-son.
Well, yeah, that's one of many. But that's a huge part of the film is this relationship with my relationship with our son and Andy's relationship but yeah.
But go ahead. I mean, it's
without giving too much away, obviously. He's the character has sacrificed a lot of himself and a lot of that relationship by the end of the film, and he's compromised professionally because of his relationship with his son. I don't.
Who's also I don't want to give it away either, but I'm not sure if we told the whole story, you wouldn't still appreciate it greatly because of the nature of the way it is. Tell me from looking at it as I did, you see as what the CIA does to you, what living a life of secrets in a hall of mirrors does to a human being. Yeah, for both, for the man as well as for the woman.
I'll speak on behalf of the woman, I suppose. I think it's just for any of us, just to live with that kind of, for a wife to just know very little about what's happening, but to understand that the things going on in the world, to believe, hopefully as she does in the beginning, that he is out to try to save the world, and thinks he's doing all the right things for all the right reasons, and what that must have made them feel, but at the same time how unhealthy it is in many ways to think you have that kind of power as one man or one group, and what that. But certainly the secrets and the things that happen and just being somebody completely in the dark and the world is going on around you, and even in those scenes, just to feel those moments where they'd be talking or something would be going on, and it felt that there was something wrong. It felt like that the whole world, there was just something uncomfortable going on, that he was always uncomfortable in his own, that to be next to somebody who is having to guard so many secrets, who is weighed down constantly by something that is clearly a decision he's having to make that is going to either hurt somebody, maybe try to help somebody, maybe make a real big mistake, maybe. And I didn't know moment to moment. I wasn't tried not to be conscious of where he was at. But certainly just the weight of being next to him and feeling something very uncomfortable. Thinking
about the things you have done, how hard a performance was this for you?
It was a great challenge. It was hard in that it was just against what I am. She's
which is
the exact opposite of you.
Yeah, exactly what I'm trying to get at.
She is the exact opposite.
Meaning what?
I always joked with her that she just followed her instincts completely, and then did and then did exactly the opposite to play the character.
Oh, I see.
She just what's my first instinct? Okay, now let me do the opposite.
I see. It's kind of a contrarian kind of thing.
Yeah, Angie would last in this marriage for about 15 seconds. She would have knocked out Edward taking the kid. She'd be on the road. That's it.
Piloting her own plane.
And it's exactly. And it's like nothing she would have done as an actress. I mean, the role is completely different from her whole body of work. There's nothing like this.
That's my point. Therefore, it had to be difficult.
It was, and again, like Matt was saying, you have the safety of, you get very nervous in front of Mr. De Niro. At the same time, when you feel like you're doing something right or you're on track, you have this safety net of, of somebody who's not going to, who's going to guide you to do. I was often questioning. I felt lost on many occasions.
Saying, where do I go from here?
Yeah, and I did. I mean, I had an etiquette coach. You know, we had many different things to help me understand the period, the women of that period, to understand the difference of what rights they had, what freedoms they had compared to mine, that her behavior was from something, and why she didn't leave. And there were real reasons for that. It wasn't just if it was me. You know, it's a different time, and especially as a woman, you know, it wasn't that long ago. It was a very different time for women, and even to speak up against her husband, to say to be inappropriate publicly.
Yeah, but you're close to your mother, aren't you?
Oh, very.
Yeah. I mean,
but my mom was she was a 60s.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Right. The idea, the poet we were thinking about was Ezra Pound.
That's right.
You know, we were all trying to remember who.
Right.
Jim Angleton is a kind of prototype for the character. This is a guy who came out of Yale, was a poet, was a very literary guy, ended up in counterintelligence in the CIA, and was a friend, I think, of Ezra Pound, and read E. Cummings and all of those people like that. Mm-hmm. Did you read much about Angleton in terms of sort of understanding him?
Yeah, we didn't want it to be an exact. An imitation or anything, and also for legal reasons, we wanted it to be a composite, and also we didn't want to get stuck having to do a biopic, and then we were restrained by only things he did in his life. You know, the story. We wanted to have more leeway with the story. So.
But he is the sensibility of the character.
A lot, yes. We read, there were some books about him. Cold Warrior was one that Tom Mangold wrote, and that was one of the ones we were reading.
Is this the British journalist, or?
Yeah, and I went and saw him in London.
Tom,
and talked to him a bit.
It's his kind of story.
Yeah, and Wilderness of Mirrors was another book that was a bit, but you know, and Angleton was you know, he raised orchids, and so we have, you know, I do ships and bottles, and a solitary thing that takes a lot of patience, and so that was kind of the model of it, and you know, I saw some interviews and some footage of him, but very early on, and then just let that go. But
are you a different director than you were last time out?
Well, I've learned stuff from the last time and now. I don't know if I'm different. I probably this is a different set of problems in this story as opposed to Bronx Tale. So I can't.
Clooney once said that being an actor versus being a director is the difference between being paint and a painter.
Oh, that's an interesting.
But
way.
one you not necessarily agree with, or
well, I think movies are. They're so expensive. The materials you have are the actors and all the other people that create the movie, and then it's like not having a pencil and paper to write a story or paint, you know, oils and a canvas. You've got this big production that is your paint and canvas. So you've got to get it all right in order to be able to put it all together later. So, and it costs a lot of money to do that.
Let me ask this. And wasn't there a moment in which you lost, I guess Leo was looking at it, and when he departed, the one source of money departed?
No, well, it's sort of, it's just that I had all the momentum going and all the departments. I had Bob Richardson, I had everybody in place, and we had lost people before we started up, lost offices. I had to pay to keep it all going, so that I was so worried with schedule and everything that that's why I said I just got to go on. I got to move on because I have to keep it moving.
So he grabbed the nearest wasp.
I grabbed him, and thank God he was there.
Thank
God he was there.
Here's what I would love to do for a moment and just have you guys talk about it. I don't know whether you can talk about it easy, but acting is damn hard. I remember the late Robert Altman saying to me, you know, I watch them with awe because of what they can do, what you can do, what you can do, what you can do. And you have said before, I mean, the drama of getting somebody, of knowing that you have to come to the right moment, you know, and deliver is. Talk about that for me, how hard it is to act and what it is that makes acting so challenging.
Well, for me, it depends. I think if there's a really great script and a really, it gets a lot easier. It can sometimes you can get into a place where you're really relaxed, or with a character or something that you really just kind of, it's easier. And sometimes it feels like it's impossible, and sometimes it literally feels impossible, and something's not working. I mean, I think actually maybe you should answer the question first.
No, I was thinking of certain scenes, and we had some scenes where I wasn't sure about how far we would go. There are very emotional, dramatic scenes, but that doesn't mean that they're big and all that. So when we were working on a couple of these, actually, I think sometimes, for example, sometimes Matt's actual frustration in something was really good for the scene, and he was trying. It was putting all this stuff together to get it, and ultimately, what we used with the scene was, I felt, what he was trying to get to, but actually what he was trying to get to was what he should have been doing, and I didn't realize it then. And all I know is when we had it later, I knew we had it. It's just and then putting it together and taking it down, simplifying it. So that was, and
follow him on an acting.
Well, it's not a question, but it is the three of you at this table is.
I think we love
opportunity I shouldn't miss.
I think, by the way, just being in the group with these is great. I think we all know that we are very, very lucky to have this profession, and we obviously love it. So it's been, as much as it's difficult to create and to discover yourself through all the different worlds and different people we've been able to inhabit, is such a great education as a human being in life. The things we've gotten to do and be, and it's amazing. I think then the difficulty lies only in having to kind of be so aware of your own self. I know for me, whether it is figuring out an emotional place or how you feel about something, you have to be somewhat connected to
as your life has become larger, and you've done, you're with the UN and all the things that you've done that go beyond acting. Is it still as compelling for you as it was, or do you find that there are other things that are pulling you away from it?
Yeah, certainly. I've worked very little in the last 2 years. I've worked at maybe a total of 3 months, but I'm fortunate that in the small times I'm able to work, I'm able to do something like this. Yeah. But no, my life has become, and this time with my family, and being a woman, so I'm home having the baby, and all that's just taken priority. But that doesn't mean I don't think film is important, but I certainly
it now has to share with other things.
Yeah, and I'm in a very lucky position where I can disappear for a year and still get a job. So that's great.
Roll tape. Here's another clip from the film. There's an extraordinary scene in which John Turturro plays. He's your colleague, and they're going through the kind of Hall of Mirrors thing where they're worried about whether there is a mole inside and whether they're being had by the Russians. Right. Who was that actor, and where did you find him?
Well, I read him about 2 years ago, and Mark Ivanir, and I was so concerned about this part that somebody could pull it off, this scene. And when he came in, I even looked after him. He read. I said, I know we have him, and I just looked and the Russian actors, and nobody ever came close to what he could do. I was so lucky that we have him in the movie.
Oh, it's an extraordinary. I mean, the back and forth between the two of them. It's probably the best torture scene I've ever seen. Don't you think, Matt?
It's a great scene. It's a great scene. It's just there's nothing. It's perfect. It's perfect. In fact, the long version went. Yeah. We wish we could put the long version was I don't know. It was 10 or 12. It just kept going and going, but it was so full of detail and so full. I mean, everything. I mean, it was. And what was incredible was this actor, Mark, he showed up and, it's like with his lunchbox and, went to work.
Where do I sit?
For less than a week.
Where do I sit before you take me apart?
But it was incredible to show up and do that and go right to where he went and be there for a week, and then boom, and then that was it, and that scene was over and he was gone.
For all the things that are going on the set, when you guys are participating in this movie, beyond what you have to do together, are you sitting around saying, I'm going to go to school here. I want to think about what's going on here and beyond my character, because I want to make movies, because I want to do other things, because of all the stuff. And I'm here in one of the most interesting laboratories that could ever be.
Yeah, for me, yeah, I think the part of it's really fun, the whole research part, when there isn't any pressure, when there isn't that incredible amount of money being spent and every minute that you're there, and it's a much kind of more relaxed time where you can get a lot of work done and learn a lot of things that I don't sometimes help and sometimes don't. For me, I never really know what is going to help, and I've done things in movies that I think are terrible because I researched it wrong. I just did I studied all the wrong stuff beforehand, and there was nothing there for me to hold on to when I did the movie, and it didn't work. But yeah, with this, I mean, this is, it's really, really interesting subject matter. I hope other people find it interesting.
Yeah, but I mean, are you thinking about it? I might direct a movie one day, and I want to, hear this is one rare opportunity to see actors and a director that I can learn from.
Well, I think about that with every movie that I've done. I choose every movie by the director. I mean, I've even taken a lot of roles that I don't think. I mean, rather than try to take a role and I never take a role that I think would be great for me if I don't like the director, because I'd rather be in a supporting role or with a director that I really admire, because I'd like to direct someday. So I want to be learning as much as I can.
Beggar Pants was that.
Yeah, that was an example of I chose a director, who I admired and ultimately didn't really. I don't feel like I brought anything to that role. I don't think I think I underserved him. I think in that movie. And I researched it all wrong. I learned how to play golf. And it turns out, millions of people play golf.
They could tell.
I didn't learn anything. I sat there for hundreds of hours. I'd never played golf and just trying to focusing on this thing. And by the end, I just showed up to work. And it was hopeless. I didn't have anything.
Yeah, but I thought you might say you go to a job like that because of the director.
Absolutely.
And the character might not have been right for you in the first place.
It wasn't, but it doesn't mean I didn't learn a lot. I mean, the experience. It's the results are one thing. The process is different. I mean, I got a lot out of that. I have a lot of I learned a lot. There's always a lot to learn, no matter what.
In the end, are you instinctive about this business? You operate from the heart and from your...
Yeah, about this business, no.
No, I don't mean the business, but I mean about what you're doing in front of a camera.
Yeah, I think so. I think I've always, I've read a piece and I've always felt that if I didn't think I was the right person to do something, then I had no right to step forward and put my hat in, and I only have felt that way when I've read something and had some kind of instinct, not knowing exactly why, but knowing that there was something that I identified with, something I cared about, something that I was going to fight for, want to explain, want to express through the character.
If I looked at the things that you have done over the last 10 years, would I see any kind of pattern or just...
Hopefully growth.
Yeah, you'd see that. Yeah.
Well, hopefully that. I mean, hopefully I'm changing as a woman, I'm growing up as a woman, and I've been really fortunate to not just get stuck doing the same thing, and that I had this opportunity to do something that was so different from what I've done, and to try to keep doing that, not just to show I can have range, but to have, to learn different things about different sides of myself as a woman and different sides of life.
You want to direct?
I don't think so.
You don't?
I don't know if I've got the discipline Bob's got. I love movies, but I don't know if I've got, I don't know if I'd have to have all my kids raised out of the house. I don't know. I love it, but I really, it's a lot of work. And I respect so much. I'd come to work and I'd see these guys and they'd been working 17-hour days, and he's got so much to worry about, as he was saying, just handling everything, and it's a big responsibility, and you have to think about everything and take on everything, and I like the joy of being a team member.
Do you like does being a mother give you greater appreciation for the whole process
of film?
Yeah.
Well, I think I know it's, to balance family and film, which Bob's done, which Matt's going to learn how to do as he gets up at night with the baby and then goes to work.
Yeah.
It is a balance, and it's the most important thing to have examples, too, of not just people you like their work, but that you see that they have a great marriage, a great life, and they're able to live an interesting life, not just portray one.
Yeah. You're amazing in that beyond acting and then directing, You have this sort of extraordinary sense of commitment to this city.
Right. Yes.
You want to love to create a film capital here. And
Sure.
Tell me what the ambition is that sort of.
Well, well, one of the more obvious ones is that all the movies were moving to Canada, and movies that are supposed to be in New York are shot in Canada, and that's fine, that's great to a point, but then we really should try and have a lot of those films.
There's some new
back
tax
with
incentive
us.
to bring them here.
There is, and that helped us with The Good Shepherd too. So that was because I wanted to keep to shoot the movie here for personal reasons and because it would be in New York, and those are my two important reasons. And whenever I can shoot in New York, can't always do that.
So you made a great cathedral in New York look like Yale and all of that.
Well, yeah, we had St. John of the Divine, and then we used the Brooklyn Navy Yard for Berlin, a piece of the street with the railroad track and then everything else. Yeah.
Richard Holbrook said about this film, and I assume you to talk to him, that because he knows as well as I do some of the players, some of the real life players, that this is in fact, in the end, shows what you can do about finding truth in something that's not, that's a script. What is the truth that you hope comes out of this?
Well, the movie is like to me is like the mythology of the CIA, America's elite class, ruling class, and so that the things that all I was hoping to do is get whatever the material we did, that it was as truthful, as believable, as credible as it could be. And I mean, the story is so big. I wish I had more time to make it like do 2 or 3 more episodes.
Well, you may do a second.
Hopefully, yes. But and that's it. I mean, that's what fascinated me. This how. It's like certain things are not actually what happened, but they are part of that mythology, and to make that believable and as real as possible. That was my.
It also said in a less significant way, but still there, that the United States has existed and prevailed, but that it takes a lot of tough things in order to live in the world, that we live in a very tough neighborhood around the world, and that you have to play a very hard game.
Yeah, absolutely.
And sometimes, like the Cuba, as President Kennedy has said, you have to, sometimes you win and sometimes you lose and sometimes you wish you hadn't tried.
Yeah, exactly.
Congratulations.
Thank you, John.
Congratulations, Matt. It's great to have you here. It is, The Good Shepherd is as good a film as I have seen in a long, long while. It is a combination of all the things. Many of them are here, but people are not at this table. Eric, who wrote the script, and John Turturro, and the great Michael Gabon, and Billy Crudup, and so many other people came together under the great hand of Bob De Niro to make a film called The Good Shepherd, which is about America, but it's also about fathers and sons and husbands and wives and friends and a whole range of human endeavor and emotion that has somehow in a film been captured to tell us something about who we are. Thank you for joining us. See you next time.